Good morning, guys. I hope you're doing well. Coming back to talk about Esther chapter 2. Yesterday we talked about Esther chapter 1. You can watch the video to kind of get a feel for what's going on in the book. I'm going to dive in to chapter 2. Now, chapter 2 picks up with Queen Vashti being deposed, being banished, basically, and the king now realizes he kind of made a hasty and bad decision. It says, after his anger subsided, he went to be with her and realized, oh yeah, she's not here anymore. So what am I going to do about that? And so he talks to his officials and they say, hey, why don't you just get all the beautiful young unmarried women from the country and basically have a beauty pageant where you will choose one to be the next queen. And so he says, sure, why not? I like looking at beautiful young women. So he does that. And this is kind of where Esther gets introduced. Esther at this point is a single, beautiful young woman, and she is chosen to be a part of this, for lack of a better term, beauty contest. And so she's taken away to do this, and right before she's taken away, her cousin, Mordecai, who's raising her, says, hey, now don't disclose your Jewish heritage. And part of this was because there were people who hated Jews in the capital of Persia, and Susa, I believe, is the capital of Persia. And so he says, don't disclose your Jewish heritage. It might come to bite you if you do. And she agrees, and so she goes through this process that's outlined in order to be a part of this competition, or whatever you want to call it. And along the way, she finds favor in the eyes of the people who are in charge. And eventually she finds herself standing before the king, and she finds favor in his eyes. Now, the phrase finds favor in someone's eyes is the author's allusion, I think, to God's providence, that this is God's plan, that God is working behind the scenes to make sure this all works out. And my reasoning for that comes from the book of Daniel. Daniel, we see when he's taken into exile before the Babylonian kings, finds favor in different officials' eyes. And so to see that phrase repeated again says to me, this is God working, even though it doesn't say God is doing this. So anyway, Esther finds favor in the king's eyes and becomes the next queen. She is chosen to be the next queen. And so right before chapter 2 ends, we see this kind of a side story going on, where Mordecai, her cousin, who sits in the king's gate, which basically means he's someone of some importance, whether it's in the community or whatever, he's someone of importance, and so he hangs around the king's palace, the king's gate, in case he is needed. Well, while he's there, he overhears a couple of guards or palace workers, I can't remember which it is at the moment, talking, and they're saying they're going to kill the king. They're plotting against the king. And so Mordecai goes and he talks to Esther and reports what's going on, and Esther reports it to the king, and it's credited to Mordecai when the information is found to be true. It's credited to Mordecai that he saved the king's life because he uncovered this plot. And that's going to play into the story in a little bit. So that's chapter 2 in a nutshell, guys. And so the question is, okay, what can we take away from chapter 2? I think one of the big takeaways you guys can think about as you go throughout your day is Esther and Mordecai did things that were right and weren't immediately rewarded for it. Esther may not have wanted to be queen. She may have wanted to have nothing to do with this beauty contest that was going on. If you've ever seen the VeggieTales Esther movie, you know that in their portrayal of Esther, she wanted nothing to do with this. She just wanted to be a normal girl and live her life. That may be true. Again, VeggieTales, it's not exactly historically accurate, but they do a good job, and I think it tends to be probably pretty true that she may not have even wanted to be queen, but she obeys the governing authorities over her, participates in this contest, and God uses it and will eventually use her. In the same way, Mordecai did what was right. he went through the proper channels to report this plot he had heard, and he wasn't rewarded for it immediately, but God's going to use it for great things. So I say all that to say, there are going to be times in life where you have the option to do something that's right, even if you aren't rewarded for it. And you should do what is right, because even if you're not rewarded for it in the moment, God is going to use it for something great. So that's my thought from chapter 2 of the book, guys. Tomorrow we'll talk about chapter 3. So in the meantime, stay safe, take care, and I'll see you tomorrow.